I'm Professor Veena Sikri. I have been a career diplomat, then a professor, and now I'm an author, writer, and convener of the South Asia Women's Network. Thank you, Ligia, for the wonderful introduction, and it's a great pleasure to be here at TERI's DSDS, which is a very prestigious occasion. I think, Ligia, you've raised some very valid and important questions, and I'd like to begin with what Amartya Sen said in the Argumentative Indian. He said that gender inequality is a far-reaching societal impairment, not merely a special deprivation of women. This social understanding is urgent as well as momentous. So while gender equality is seen the world over primarily as a human rights issue, I think this has been the problem. You think of it as a human rights issue, so you put it into a separate box. And that's where it remains all by itself. I think the problem is to bring it out of the box and to realize that gender equality is not only a human rights issue. The achievement of gender equality empowers men and women alike because it brings shared prosperity and it brings the community up as a whole. I think that's the only reason I can find that we have such a large number of men on our panel, that they're very interested in economic development and realize the importance of gender for economic development. Actually, the World Bank report of 2012, their report on gender equality and development, this emphasized that gender equality is a core development objective in its own right. It is smart economics. Greater gender equality can enhance productivity, it can improve development outcomes for the next generation, and it can make institutions more representative. I think you highlighted correctly, Ligia, the Global Gender Gap Report, which has brought out very significantly the fact that gender equality by itself may not be sufficient to bring development, because in the Global Gender Gap Report, there are countries like Lesotho, for example, which are very high, because Lesotho may not be a very developed country in the sense of economic development, but they have achieved gender equality. Whatever they have, they share it equally between men and women. And at the other end of the spectrum, you have a large number of countries of South Asia who are at the very bottom of that gender equality 135 nation matrix, because they have not shared what they have between men and women. So while gender equality in itself may not be sufficient, but without gender equality, no nation can overcome poverty or achieve its full potential for economic growth and prosperity. Now, this is the proposition that I think is very important for us to understand, and that is why we have to realize the importance of bringing in gender equality. The MDGs, the Millennium Development Goals, which are drawing to their close by the end of next year, have only been partially successful because I think they were not based on a holistic, integrated approach to the development process. They focused on achieving independently set sectoral targets without recognizing the key synergies that exist between various sectors. And unless you develop these synergies, you cannot overcome the basic issues of gender equality. I think the Millennium Development Goal report, the assessments for 2011-2012, have brought out that 70% of the world's poor are women. 70% of those dying of hunger in the world are women. Women are by far the lesser employed, less than 50%, whereas overall it's a 75% employment rate for men. And worse of everything, Millennium Development Goals have accepted growth as the only viable model of economic development without examining the sustainability of this growth process and the environmental impact, the socio-political impact, and the cultural impact of that. So therefore, I think as we move ahead to the Sustainable Development Goals, and this is the part of what we in the South Asia Women's Network are doing, we would like gender equality to be recognized as and accepted as the first building block of sustainable development. The Sustainable Development Goals must accept gender equality as a separate standalone goal and also as a cross-cutting goal in every sector of economic development, be it education, health, climate change, and so on. The era of gender-blind policies must come to an end. Every decision-making process must be looked at for the gender equality factor that it brings in. All ministries and decision-making organizations of the country must include gender budgeting and gender auditing to make sure that the money that is being spent equally for men and women and brings benefit to men and women equally. I think The other important aspect to realize is that the combined impact of growing gender equality creates an emerging middle class and creates spending patterns that help society as a whole. And we have seen, for example, with Grameen Bank in Bangladesh, women's spending priorities, how they changed. When you give women the money through the microfinance process, they found, as Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus explained at great length, that women spent more on education, more on nutrition for the children, more on clothing for the children. The whole pattern of spending changed in a way that benefited society as a whole. And in fact, in the words of Muhammad Yunus, give money to a man and it goes for himself. You give money to a woman, the whole family benefits. So this is what actually we should be focusing on. We do know that all across South Asia, women are a very discriminated part of society. It is an endemic discriminatory process which has made women at the very bottom of almost every sector of economic development. We are a very small percentage that, yes, we have achieved and have been able to rise to the top, but this is such a small percentage that we can only try to give back to society by helping the women who are who are not able to be part of it. The important thing here is that we should not see women as victims. We should see women as agents of change. They have to be allowed to participate in the process of development so that their voices are heard and they become part of the process of change and overcoming problems. For example, let me at this point tell you a little bit about the South Asia Women's Network that I have convened and created. It has 9 countries from Afghanistan to Myanmar, all the 8 SAARC member nations plus Myanmar. And we are looking at bringing in women as factors of change. We want women's voice, agency, and participation to be heard. If we are looking at hunger, we want women-centered solutions for hunger. Because if you make women as the center of your solutions for hunger, they will make sure that their children are not malnutritioned. We know today the World Health Organization reports have said that countries like India, which have the largest number of malnutrition children in the world, can only overcome this if they look at the first 1,000 days of a child's life from the point of conception. That means the first 2 years of the child's life plus his or her mother who needs to have a proper diet. What better than making women the center of this process of overcoming hunger? The girl child, the education process, changing the mindset of men, that they look at girls in a process of respect and they are able to overcome the elimination, they are able to be part of the process of eliminating violence against women. So our South Asia Women's Network has created a roadmap for sustainable development for the women of South Asia, where we are looking at bringing in a new socio-political order, a new environmental order, and a new economic order, which will make women as the center of the process. I'd be very happy to discuss this in greater detail when we come to the discussion process. But I'd like to also mention at this point that we have seen in all of South Asia, countries like Nepal, where women have been part of community forestry. I've already mentioned Bangladesh. We've had India, where we've had the Chipko movement and many others. And we are using these to create sustainable development goals for the women of South Asia in each sector. Thank you. Thank you very much.